I hope you see that for most people who are experiencing stressful situations, we don't have that wheel to turn to shut it off, like what Dr. Mayer was talking about. But that mindfulness is another way where you can work to shut it off internally. And it's that same sort of control over your situation that you can develop. Our next speaker is Dr. Jim Hudziak. He is professor of psychiatry here at the University of Vermont. He's the Thomas Achenbach Endowed Professor, and he's also director of the Vermont Center for Children, Youth, and Families. I asked him to come talk about the wellness environment, which is a new initiative that he started here at the University of Vermont, specifically for undergraduates as a way of developing healthy behaviors and sort of avoiding all the bad things that might come with stress. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Ray. I hope people can hear me. It's a real pleasure to be here and to talk about the creation of the wellness environment. I don't see that my slides are up yet. All right. So what the UVM WE, or Wellness Environment, is about, it's a neuroscience-inspired behavioral change program aimed at building healthy brains. The basis of my argument is that if we would expose young people during a critical period of brain development to gorgeous neuroscience, not judge, but let them understand the impact of decisions they make, they would then make different decisions. And that's sort of the goal of this program. My research, I've been following 100,000 twins since birth in the Netherlands for 20 years, 10,000 babies since 12 weeks in utero, family studies around the world, coalesce into one general bit of findings, which is that what we do changes gene expression through epigenetic modification, influences the plasticity of brain structure and function, and ultimately how we think, feel, and behave. The logo you see in the middle, the brain lifting weights, is our logo. We think you can train the brain in the same way you can train the body, and I'm going to try to show you this today. I call it the dumbbell effect. If I take a 5-pound dumbbell, 10, 20, 30, 40 pounds, you'll see my biceps increase in size, and yet all of you know all I did was change the environment, i.e. the size of the dumbbell I was curling. What if it's violin? What if it's music? What if it's meditation? What if it's reading? What if it's fitness? So what I want to first talk about, as a pediatric neuroscientist, I study brain development. And Magdalena did a great job of talking about the thesis of mindfulness, and I'm going to talk about the organ of mindfulness, the human brain. We all want to spend the time, and you heard earlier from Steve, the importance of developing the VLPFC, the braking system of the brain. It's also thought of the task-positive network, where we take perspectives, we plan for the future, we think flexibly. A more primitive network, Stephen also talked about, is the emotion network. We like to call it the default mode network. This is where the amygdala, the nucleus accumbens, lives. This is where a lot of us live. This is the area of the brain that drives us into risk-taking, drives us into some of the decisions that you saw Linda talk about earlier. And the whole business of becoming a competent human being is to teeter the totter between the task-positive network and the default mode network. And many of us spend a lot of our time in this default mode network, allowing the amygdala, the accumbens, and these emotional regulatory regions to drive us to distraction. My work in my own clinic, I meditate. Everybody who treats patients in my clinic meditate with 3-year-old, 4-year-olds through belly breathing with Common and Elmo, from the Sesame Street app all the way up to mums and dads, with the idea of moving us from this red zone of the brain into the blue zone of the brain. Why do we do this? Well, stress and adversity actually affects the volume of your VLPFC, your PFC, and these regulatory regions. It actually shrinks your cortical mantle. And the second most stressful thing a college-age student does is go to college. Death of a loved one is the first. And so now you can already think of college itself being a very stressful event. I have published numerous papers on normal brain development. And not surprisingly, the epoch of my interest of critical periods followed the ages of my children. So when they were very little, I was all over 0 to 6. Then they became obnoxious, so I was 6 to 14. And now I have kids in college. And I suddenly realized, as the chair of health promotion and prevention for the field of child psychiatry in this country, that I had ignored perhaps the second most vulnerable period of brain development, that being college-age kids. And what I'm going to show you is I turned out to be right about that. And then I said I wanted to change this field from the inside out and start with the University of Vermont and start to create environments that promote health and prevent illness aimed at a critical period of brain development called college. Every one of these little bubbles, with the exception of weed and heady topper, actually increase the task-positive networks both in terms of activity and cortical structure. In other words, they thicken and activate the TPN, this blue area of the brain that Steve talked about so nicely in mice. Weed and heady topper actually do the opposite. So let's start to think a little bit about human brain development and why I might be so driven to study these things. This is from Javier Castellanos, and it shows the incredible architectural rearrangement that a child's brain goes through from age 4 to 22, that period of time generally following education. And one of the interesting deals is, as you see cortical organization proceed after synaptogenesis, myelination, apoptosis, and the brain itself starts to organize into the adult character that you are, is that you can see from 17 to 22 a whole heck of a lot of work is still going on. And Linda talked about this earlier, the idea that cortical maturation occurs in women around 22, 23, 24, men maybe 40, 45. The issue of, not ever, Steve says, the issue is what are we doing? Because if I gave you a survey and said, I want to know if you're going to let your daughter or son go to an environment where she or he is likely to engage in 50% opportunity of blackout alcohol use, 49% harmful cannabis use, and if she's a young woman, 21% of some sort of sexually unpleasant assault or diminution. No parent in the world would ever agree to put their child in that environment. And those are national statistics for college. And what I'm going to show you is that the brain in development, the cortical organization period from 17 to 22 may be the second most vulnerable, may be the time we should be protecting our children more rather than this illusion that they're cooked, they're ready to go. And yet we send them off to college and they fail. They develop substance abuse problems, weight problems, obesity problems, terrible stuff. So what's going on during the brain? I want to show you this thing from my buddy Paul Thompson. Look at cortical organization. It's blue coming in, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. That prefrontal frontal OFC area of the brain, that's the area of the brain of your personality, your temperament, IQ, and achievement, regulatory regions, and it hasn't even begun cortical organization at the epoch of starting college. This is the period of time that determines who you are. And I'm really interested in this because I think I have an obligation to develop programs, not only in Vermont, but around the country, that takes care of this vulnerable population of adolescents, those in college. I also want to understand why people do things they do. Because although we don't have to worry about the reproductive success of this guy, we might also just say he's probably not a bad human being. He probably thought this thing through with that red part of his brain. It's just he doesn't have a blue part of his brain. In other words, college-age students are like supercharged race cars without brakes, without parachutes. Those regions of the brain that drive them to take risks, that drive them to be engaged in things like procrastination, worry, fear, rumination, the default mode network, they're fully developed. In fact, this beautiful work that starts to show these red areas of the brain reach the subcortical region's maturation far in advance of those blue areas of the brain. So you get maturation following the storm of androgenic steroids during the post-pubertal period. You're ready to go, you're ready to party, you're ready to be aggressive, take risks, but your braking system, remember Steve's beautiful slide, that VLPFC comes down and says, stop it. It hasn't even started to develop. It can't say stop if it doesn't exist. B.J. Casey, a good friend of Hugh Garavan and mine and others here at the university, did a beautiful study, put young kids, college-age students and adults in an MRI machine and asked them basically a risk-aversive emotional reactivity question. They all gave the same answer, but only the amygdala of the college kid exploded, got excited, said, let's go. The red brain is on in this area. Again, why do we do these things? Well, if you think in a very kind of mindful way, these are probably all good human beings who are thinking, I'm going to challenge myself today. And without a blue brain, these look like very reasonable hypotheses. Today, they don't look so smart. So I decided to say, I want to improve those blue areas of the brain. If you guys go online, I don't know if this will work, we'll see. You can go and look at the environment that I've created with partners here. It's called the UVM Wellness Environment. And you'll see in this environment there's pillars of fitness, nutrition, mindfulness, and we mentors. If you click the mindfulness box, you'd see what's the big deal, but you'd also see Seattle Seahawks, New York Knicks, New England Patriots, Google, Quaker Oats. And in my most recent experience with working with the folks at Apple, they all have fully vetted, fully aggressive mindfulness programs in place. Who needs it more than anybody? College kids. Who's not getting it? College kids. So I decided to create a pillar-based environment where all of the things that neuroscience has shown improves the building and function of those blue areas of the brain and literally diminishes the volume of the amygdala and its activity, that we should bring that and prescribe that to kids. So the first pillar is fitness. If you live in our dorms, you get a fitness assessment done by a personalized trainer, and then you get daily access to fitness training in Olympic gyms. We fund it up front using incentive-based approaches, a $350 fitness pass, so everybody who lives in gets to go to all these gyms and has a coach, doesn't do it alone. And if she does 60 swipes a year, it's free. If she does 45, she has to pay she gets a 75% discount. If she only goes 30 times a year, she gets a 50% discount. In other words, we're paying students who live in my environment to exercise because we know it'll build blue, shrink red. Just a wee bit of science to support that. You're in college. You're going to improve your neurocognitive, scholastic performance with daily exercise. It'll reduce your hyperactivity, improve your attention skills, and in fact, it's almost a dose effect. I could watch this all day. Perhaps the most anxiety-provoking time in college students' lives are in college. Many high school athletes go to college, don't have the compete to continue, and they withdraw the best anxiety and depression medicines they've ever had, which was daily exercise. And in fact, if you work out daily, your improvements are so great, and they're in the executive processing areas of your brain, which, by the way, is that blue area of the brain. And the effect size of daily exercise on improved executive processing performance is 0.7, not 0.07, 0.7. Remember, the effects of aspirin on heart attack risk is 0.06, and everybody was willing to do that. And if I offered you a drug that was 100 times more effective, 30 minutes of exercise a day, I'm hoping the students will take it, because it also improves the size of your hippocampus and other networks associated with memory and executive functioning. Pillar number 2, mindfulness and yoga. If you live in the we environment, you're offered daily mindfulness training in yoga studios. You can see the brochure. There's 3 times a day yoga. And in fact, this week, if you want, is the yoga pillar, the mindfulness pillar. You can see we have mandatory mindfulness Monday, where we're bringing in Tai Chi, music mindfulness, and movement mindfulness, and exploring our own mindful awareness. We then have Zentangle and tie-dye on Monday, mindful on Tuesday, mindful eating on Wednesday, dorm room yoga on Thursday, and movie night on Friday. This is all in the dorm. I'm lobbying for Happy Gilmore, which I think is possibly the most mindful movie ever made, but I don't think I'm making progress. If you've seen the movie, you know Happy goes to his happy place and somehow gets better. The whole idea is to teach college students mindfulness at a time where it probably has the greatest impact on neuroplasticity. So now a wee bit of science on mindfulness. We mentioned John Kabat-Zinn and his work, but my best pal, a former genomic expert and who runs the Mindful Awareness Center at UCLA, has already published genomic and neuroimaging studies on the effects of mindfulness on ADHD. She has a friend called the Dalai Lama. She accused him of having ADHD, and he said, that's great because then I have many more cues to practice mindfulness throughout the day. It's also probably one of the best and controlled tests for stress reduction. How does it work? Literally a dose effect. If I put you in the gym, if you're out of shape and I say, I want you to start to lift weights, I want you to do a whole core and lower body fitness program, it'll take you 8 weeks to see the changes in your body. Zinn wrote in 82, which I thought was great. He said, I don't care if you like mindfulness or not, do it for 8 weeks and then tell me if you like it. Well, now we know from neuroscience, 8 weeks of mindfulness training reduces the size of your amygdala almost in a dose-effect way, and it almost perfectly correlates with your ability to control stress. Remember Steve Sly, the mice that could control stress versus not control stress. The way you do that is you change the structure and function of your brain through brain training, and that brain training is fitness training. It's also mindfulness training because it increases the structure of these blue areas of the brain, improves your ability to attend and engage in executive processing. Not that going to college is like enrolling in the Marines, but this beautiful study by Johnson and Paulus. They took a group of Marines, 147 trained in mindfulness, 147 Marines as usual, and following 8 weeks of training, they exposed them to real-time virtual war games. The Marines who got mindfulness training not only had no deaths, fewer injuries, and no episodes of PTSD, they also showed structural changes with reduction in amygdala volume and improvement in the blue area of the brain. In summary, mindfulness leads to more active dorsal and lateral prefrontal cortical regions, more active parietal regions, decreased amygdala volume, less active amygdala, less active anterior cingulate, and less active insula. Pillar number 3 that college students don't do that affects your brain is how you eat. In the WE program, you get a personalized assessment with a dietitian and nutrition consultant, and then you get weekly nutrition consultations. It's not about what you eat necessarily, it's about when you eat. We give all of our students are placed on Fitbits, and they're motivated by exercise and diet to attend these things. They get teaching within our kitchens in our dorm. We're working with Sodexo, working with VTRIM, working in the Department of Dietetics. Why are we doing it? Well, again, a wee bit of science. We interviewed all the WE students and asked them where they ate. This is where they eat. They say Sodexo's not very good. This is very good. And Sodexo will cook for you all if you want to be cooked for, but you need to tell them. So let's say you eat late at night at some of these wonderful places. This beautiful animal literature shows that if you eat outside of a 12-hour period, you're going to gain weight, even if you're eating well. You take mice, you feed them in a tight period of time, you can actually feed them bad food, and they don't gain weight. And you start to understand the metabolome and the biome and its interaction with the genome and the brain, and you can start to understand how we have to help college students through neuroscience understand the effects of their eating habits on brain development and function. Perhaps the most stunning and reproducible finding is skipping breakfast and massive weight gain, with multiple studies showing this, including a meta-analysis. And then mood, memory, and anxiety flows with this missed breakfast. So we want to not say just fitness, just mindfulness. We want to bring in everything. So when possible, have baked or broiled fish, not fried, once a week. Just don't get baked. This is how we build in the whole argument about alcohol and cannabis. We treat them as nutrigens. And we say, go ahead and drink and watch it destroy your sleep cycles. Watch it disrupt your ability to exercise. Watch it disrupt your ability to engage in mindfulness. You decide if that's how you want to live your life. You think you smoke weed to fall asleep, you may fall asleep, but you sure as heck won't sleep well, and that affects your mood and memory and the structure and function of the human brain. We don't judge. We show gorgeous neuroscience. People can decide what they want to do. Everybody who lives in the UVM WE environment is going to be a WE mentor. We've already published on the power of engaging in mentoring relationships, giving back, building those blue areas of the brain, of paying attention to nature, thinking in the moment. Individuals in the college age group who mentor young children, they're less likely to drop out of school. They're less likely to abuse alcohol and drugs. This is the app I'm working on with some companies out in a town called Cupertino. By January, this should be live. And little kids in Burlington will be able to look at university students, all of whom have queued a 15-second video. See if
Hey, I'm Sam. I'm really excited to be a mentor because I've been playing soccer my whole life, and I would love the opportunity to play with someone who's excited to do so as well.
what the young student does, he doesn't get a big brother or big sister with no invitation other than inspire this individual. The kid's a skill-based relationship that can be based in sports and music, language skills, and academic performance, all done real time. Now, to buttress this, we developed a curriculum. At the University of Vermont, we have a proposed College of Medicine behavior change minor, already in review. Healthy brains, healthy bodies, brain on drugs, family wellness coaching, and the science of happiness are all being taught right now. They're all brain-based courses. The neuroscience is incredible. In Healthy Brains, Healthy Bodies, we fill every room that we're given. The course provides neuroscience and genomics of wellness. We know they can understand it. We're just giving them the knowledge they need because they can make their own decisions. We start and end each class with 5 minutes of mindfulness. We teach new mindfulness techniques every day so you can use them going across. The only course book for the class is Fitbits. And in the class, we have the Captain America Fitbit competition going on right now. In September, the kids walked far enough to go all the way to Russia and back. You're seeing individuals putting up 20,000, 22,000, 24,000 steps a day. You're also seeing one or two put up about 600. We decided that person is being carried to class. And again, the theory of mindfulness is in play here. We don't judge. We just look at who we are, what we're doing, and how it's affecting our blue brain versus our red brain. We're offering in the spring Healthy Brains, Healthy Bodies, the science of happiness, the effects of adversity on the brain, and independent studies to try to vector this idea of wellness throughout the campus through courses and through a learning environment. In Healthy Brains, Healthy Bodies, debating the best way to deal with a woman who's pregnant and abusing OxyContin. We just make simple phone calls to people like the local attorney general. He comes in and debates, affects a sort of southern lawyer performance, and the students get deeply involved in a person who's writing laws about what to do about the OxyContin problems. Our goal is the war on drugs should include preventing the next generation of individuals from becoming addicted to substances. We then move in quickly to We events. We're sponsoring a 420 5K for wellness on campus. The race starts at 4:20 p.m. on April 20th. We hope some of you will join us. This is to provide an alternative to what happens at 420 on 420. We do apple picking, we do wee laxations, we do Zumba drop-ins, we do wee hikes, we're doing the wee penguin plunge, we have a wee not naked bike ride program being planned right now. Everybody's getting certified. If you go beyond your 60 swipes and do 200 hours and you take our We Fitness Mentor program, you become a We Fitness Mentor for next year's We population to create a sustainable behavioral change model, all inspired by neuroscience. If you do 200 hours of mindfulness or yoga training, you get a We yoga certification and you become a We yoga and mindfulness teacher. The National Yoga Foundation found out I did this. They called me. They said, you can't do that. And I channeled Ricky Bobby from Talladega Nights, and I said, I sure as hell can. And then they said, okay, how can we help? Just that quick. Well, again, John Kabat-Zinn started something. It's unreasonable to meditate 1 hour a day. It turns people off. We need to make this stuff for everybody, and most importantly, college kids. The same is true with yoga certification, fitness certification, etc. We mentor programs are already underway. We residential leaders have been identified. I'm going to tell you right now that this has been a great deal of fun for us to be part of. The We brand is growing not only here but around the country. And we're creating We wellness videos. We have 300 on the internet right now. Please enjoy this as I stop.
For the sun in blue faces, one by one, we want to thank you. No matter our trials, you're making us smile. You're the bright in the bend, and we'll ride to the end. No matter the miles, you're making us smile. No matter the situation, a heart that's headed for breaking, a static in all the stations, or like a conversation.
It feels good to smile, man. All right.
'Cause day by day, you're the sun in blue faces, one by one. We wanna thank you. No matter our trials, you're making us smile. sensation, a heart that's headed for breaking, static in all the stations, or like a conversation. Well, I can't complain, 'cause day by day by day, you're the sun in blue faces, one by one. We're gonna thank you, 'cause you're the end to a bad day, but I'll grin when I wake. And we wanna thank you for making us smile. Oh, oh.
That was fabulous.